Miss Skene, welcome. Thank you for joining us and taking time out of your busy diary to speak to us today.
You're quite welcome. I don't quite see why you'd want to talk to me though.
Well, you've done very wonderful things with your life. You've published over 25 books, you've had lots of famous friends, and you've made a huge difference to the people living in Oxford.
I assure you my life has not been as grand as all that. I merely do the work appointed to me.
Well, let's start with your childhood. Tell us a little bit about your family and where you grew up.
I had a very lovely childhood. I was the youngest of 8 children, and my siblings and parents doted on me. They were always particularly attentive to me for some reason. I was born in Paris and lived there for several years before my family moved to Edinburgh.
Right, and it's in Edinburgh that we meet some of those famous people that I mentioned, right?
Oh, I see who you mean. My father was very dear friends with Sir Walter Scott, and my parents spent a significant amount of time with the exiled Charles X of France. But although they may be more well known, they were not the sum total or the most important of the people we knew.
Moving forward, tell us about some of your teenage years.
Well, my family and I moved to Athens when I was 17.
Wow.
We lived there for 7 years. I very, very much enjoyed my time in Greece, and it inspired several of my writings over the years. In 1845 we moved back to Edinburgh, but then divided our time between Scotland and Leamington Spa.
Okay, and was it around this time that you then moved to Oxford?
Yes, in 1849 I persuaded my family to move to Oxford.
Persuaded? Why?
I had been learning a great deal about the Christian and intellectual life in Oxford, and I desperately wanted to be a part of it. Over the coming years I trained as a nurse, and it was a great blessing that we were in Oxford when the cholera epidemic broke out.
Yeah, so tell us more about that time with the epidemic. It must have been very hard for you.
It was my duty. Whether it was hard or not didn't particularly occur to me. It was my duty and my role to organise the nurses in Oxford and to save as many lives as we could possibly. I worked no harder than any of the other nurses, risking their own lives and their health to save others.
And with all that going on, it was during this time that we see another famous name, right?
I presume you mean Florence Nightingale. Yes, she and I got to know each other very well and became firm friends. Although, as I said, every one of the nurses deserve as much recognition as myself and Florence received for their hard work and dedication.
So, once the epidemic had calmed and everything had settled, what did you do next?
I had developed quite a passion for the younger women and girls in Oxford, many of whom I met as fellow volunteer nurses or as patients under my care. So many of them didn't have the means or the education or upbringing to end up with careers. I saw so many turn to wayward living, and most of them ended up in Oxford prison. I also noticed that the women who left the prison after their sentence ended, they weren't given a chance at a new life or entering into any kind of society other than the one they'd been arrested from. I saw this as a grave injustice, and I wanted to do something about it. So I chose to help them. I would meet them as they were released from jail, provide them with accommodation, food, and as much education as I could give them, and then try and help them get settled into some sort of good, honest work.
Oh, that's quite incredible work. How did you have the money to be helping all of these women during this time?
I made some earnings from the writings I was able to publish. I didn't have anything else to do with the money. I wanted it to go to good use.
Well, you're a truly astonishing lady, Miss Skene. During this period, was it hard to keep in contact with your family?
On the contrary, my family and I have always been close, and they were very dear to me. I spent a lot of time with 2 of my nieces in particular, and when my parents grew older, I took care of them and nursed them as best I could up until their deaths.
Well, I'm very impressed.
I don't think there is anything particularly impressive about my life. I was given the gift and ability to be able to help people. I was given the opportunity and the blessing to be able to write about my experiences and thoughts. And I was born into a loving and kind family, a privilege which so many do not get. I count myself very lucky that God gave me the life that he did, and I hope I was able to live it in a way that pleased him and helped others.
Miss Skene, thank you very much.
Thank you.